Are you a producer who thought that 2025 would be your year, but now it's about to end and you're still stuck in the same place? I used to be in the same position, but now I'm a top 2% producer with 126 million streams, 9 top 50 records, and I made my first 100K producing. I noticed that there's 3 things that separates the producers who succeed versus the producers who don't. In this video, I'm going to break down the 3 key steps I took to level up as a producer so that you can copy me and also level up in 2026. So the first step was to level up my beats. And what I did here was that I stopped making beats to impress producers, but instead make beats that impresses artists. Because it's not about the mix, it's not about making an advanced beat that sounds cool to you, it's about making beats that are commercially viable. And to be able to make commercially viable beats and actually learn what that is, I used big songs as reference tracks, and I used them for inspiration, and I used them as a source to learn from. And the reason I used big songs is because big songs are proven. If a song is on the charts, or if a song has millions and millions of streams, that means that the idea behind that beat, the idea behind that song, and that concept is proven. Which means that if I make something similar to that, I'm following a proven concept, and my beat will almost automatically become commercially viable. So the way that I went about this was by going to Spotify and listening to songs on the top 50 charts. So what I do is that I go through charts that I knew influenced the music I was making. So I'm from Sweden, I was making a lot of Swedish music, and for that reason I would go on the Swedish top 50 to find songs that were popping that I could use as references to make my own beats. Then another hack, or cheat code if you will, was that I would not only look at the Swedish top 50 chart, I would also go to the top 50 charts of other countries who I knew influenced Swedish music. I know that France influenced Swedish music as well, so then I listened to top 50 France, check out the songs that were popping there, and use them as inspiration and reference for my own beats. When actually using these references, there was only a couple things that I would look out for. The first thing was just a general thing. When listening to the top 50 songs, I would look for reoccurring themes and patterns. So for example, I might be listening through the French top 50, and I notice that there's a lot of up-tempo, Afrobeat type of songs. Then I know that, okay, that is something commercially viable. Or maybe I can hear the 4 on the floor drum pattern reoccurring. Or for example, right now, hood trap is pretty popping, and I can hear that on a lot of different charts. So then I know, okay, that's a trend right now, that's working, and that's something that I want to be doing myself. Then once I got a general understanding of what kind of drum patterns worked, what kind of vibes and moods worked, what I then do is use specific songs as reference tracks. And when I'm using a reference track, I'm not looking to copy it one for one, because at the end of the day, I want to be able to make my own music. I just want it to be a vibe that I know the market wants, so that it increases my chances of getting it placed and also making a great song. So the way I do that is by copying certain things and then leaving certain things up to my own creativity. Things that I recommend copying or emulating very closely is the tempo, chord progression, and the type of drum pattern. So if a reference have hood trap drums, you want to make a hood trap drum pattern. Does that mean that you have to make the exact same drum pattern as them? No, do your own version, use your own sound selection. And speaking of sound selection, that's also another thing that I look at, because the sound selection decides the vibe of the song. And I want to pick sounds that with the chord progression I have still gives a similar vibe while still being my own thing. But I look at what type of sounds they're using. Like for example, if they're using a guitar, I'll use a different guitar, or I'll use a guitar adjacent instrument. So if they're using a guitar, I might use a harp or something of that nature that gives me the same vibe while I can still be creative and make my own thing. Because at the end of the day, you can't just straight off copy one to one. But by finding proven demand of what works and then doing it in your own way, you increase the chances of your beats actually working as well. Now this process of figuring out chord progressions, breaking down songs, it was actually very hard for me in the beginning. And the reason it was hard was because I lacked musical skill. So for me, what really helped was learning basic music theory. Now I'm not saying that you have to go and become the craziest music theory genius, because I'm certainly not. So the only things I learned was the major scale pattern consisting of whole steps and half steps. Then I learned a minor scale pattern also consisting of whole steps and half steps. And by doing this, it enabled me to understand the chord number system. And I used that to break down the songs I was listening to and figuring out the chord progressions. It might not sound like anything special, but I view music theory as the language of music. And by understanding the language, you're able to understand what's quote unquote being said in the records. And then you can use that knowledge to break down the records and make beats that actually get placed. Then lastly, the last thing that really helped me level up my beats was getting real life feedback by working with artists. It's one thing to just sit in your room and make a bunch of beats all day. Sure, you need to do that to develop the baseline skill that's needed to even begin to work with somebody. But I wouldn't recommend getting stuck there for too long. I was not 100% confident in my beats when I started working with artists. I was probably like 70 or 80% confident. But by working with people and getting real life feedback from the people that you're actually working with, you're able to learn so much and actually figure out how to make these beats that people want way faster, way easier, because you'll have people literally telling you what they want. And it gives you a whole different understanding of the industry that you're in and what type of beats you should be making. Now, once the beats are leveled up and you're making music that the market actually wants, then the next step I had to do was to level up my brand. And the reason branding is so important is because the way I made my career was through networking with artists. And branding and networking, they go hand in hand. They feed each other. Because when you have a strong brand, networking gets easier because your brand is strong, so people want to work with you. And when networking gets easier, you get more opportunities, you get more placements, which then strengthens your brand, and it goes around in a cycle like this. And your brand is basically made up of three things: how you present yourself, the people you know, and the placements that you have. And for that reason, the easiest and first thing that I started working on was how I presented myself. Because if I present myself in a good way, I'm able to get to know the people I need to know, and through getting to know the people I need to know, getting the placements that I need to strengthen my brand even further. So the first thing I did was to work on my Instagram, since Instagram is what's going to be used for networking. And the main thing that I focus on with my Instagram is to make it look clean, kind of aesthetic, but most importantly, just look legit. So there's pictures in the studio, me working on beats. I layer that with screen recordings of my beats and stuff like that to show off the work I'm doing. And then as well, posting things like this, for example, proof and releases. So when I reach out to people and they check out my page, they can say that, okay, this guy is legit. And that makes it far more likely that I'm able to get that first connection and start working. And that is the second thing that I started doing. Because where I got stuck and where I see a lot of other producers get stuck is that we work with really, really small artists that aren't really serious and aren't really going anywhere. And because of that, we stay stuck because these artists don't have money to pay you. They're not going to be making big songs that enhance your brand. And because of that, you're stuck doing very low leverage work that doesn't actually make you any money or strengthen your brand. But the huge problem with that is that it's still the same amount of work. You're still doing sessions, you're still making beats, you're just not getting anything out of it. So the best way that I found to gain leverage is by working with small artists connected to medium artists and big artists. And the reason that is effective is because with most small artists, you have almost nothing to gain except experience and connections. So by working with small artists who are connected to bigger artists, like medium-sized or really big artists, you're able to start moving in those circles and gain those connections, and you gain a reputation for yourself in those circles. And when you have a reputation, your brand gets stronger. And when your brand gets stronger, that enables you to start networking vertically, which is just a fancy way of saying work with people one step ahead of you. Because you work with people one step ahead of you, you work with a small artist, he's connected to bigger artists, you work with that small artist, you guys release a song, he posts that song, other people hear it, other people see it, then you leverage that release to reach out to somebody one step above him, and they will now be more inclined to work because they've seen that you worked with their friend, they see that you made a good song with their friend, and then you work with them, you repeat the same process, and you just do that while consistently climbing up and up and up. And this works so well because every connection you gain, every release that you release, strengthens your brand and allows you to get bigger and better opportunities as you go. And I've seen the best place to be is either working with big artists or medium artists, and really work closely with the medium artists so that you can break them, make their biggest songs, and that way you'll have a great working relationship with somebody who's actually doing numbers, actually have money to pay you, or you're actually making money from the royalties. And it strengthens your brand a lot because it shows to other artists that you're actually able to break artists. If there's a clear before working with you and there's a clear after working with you, that's a position that you want to be in. Following that exact process of working with more medium-sized artists is exactly how I made the 9 Top 50 records. Now, the last and final thing I had to do in order to make this work was staying consistent. And I found that the best way for me to stay consistent was by leveling up my focus. Because leveling up my focus, I'm going to break down exactly what that means, but by leveling up my focus, I was able to focus in on the few tasks that actually gave me results, build habits out of those tasks so that I did them on a consistent basis, and that allowed me to eventually reach the point where I wanted to go. Now, just like most of you guys that are probably watching this, I was also working a 9 to 5, and because of that, my time was very limited. So what I had to do was to focus in on the important tasks that actually drove me forward and only do those tasks and do nothing else, because I didn't have a lot of time, so I had no room to do a bunch of stuff that didn't necessarily get me closer to my goals. So what I did was that I broke every single thing down into a list. So I make a list like this and then figure out all the actions I need to actually take in order to reach my goals. So I know that, for example, I need to update my Instagram. So then I'll just put in content. Then I'd figure out, okay, what is needed for me to make the content? I need to figure out a post idea. Do I want to make a beat slideshow? Do I want to make a lifestyle post? Whatever. Then I make the content. So take the pictures, screen record the beats. Then lastly, all I need to do is just to post it. Then I knew that I also had to network. So then I'd make a headline like this, network. Then I just break it down into the individual steps that I need to take when networking. So the first thing I need to do is to find artists. Then I need to reach out to the artists. And then I need to keep conversations going, respond back, and send out beats. So boom, that's all I need to do for networking. Last thing is that, of course, I need to make music and make beats for the artists that I'm going to be working with. So then I just break down every single step that I have to do to make a beat pack for an artist. So for example, in my case, I would listen to the artist's songs and use that to figure out what kind of beats they actually like. I also might have been given references, or I want to find my own references. Then after that, I just need to make the beats. So then I know exactly what to do and what things I need to focus on. And I know that in order for me to reach my goals, all I need to focus on is very basic content, networking, and make beats. And that makes it very easy to stay focused and know exactly what it is that you need to do. Then the next thing I do is that I plan this out in my calendar. So here I have my calendar. Now let's say I'm working my 9 to 5, so I'll be working from 7 to 4. Boom. I know I need to do that. Then I gotta get out of work, I gotta eat, I gotta do some stuff like that. Then perhaps here I know that, okay, today I need to make some beats because I have an artist I networked with. So I'm gonna plan out beat making. Then I might plan out networking. I know for a lot of people that are busy, that have 9 to 5, they like to prioritize things differently. So certain days they'll only be networking, certain days they'll only be making beats, and certain days they'll be making content. Like for example, the Instagram pictures, you could do that on the weekends where you have more time left over. Then once I had everything laid out and planned out, all I needed to do was to execute on it and stick to it, which is a challenge in and of itself. But when you know exactly what to do, how to do it, and when to do it, it's way easier to develop that habit and the focus that's needed to actually stay consistent and to actually win.